together. Well, we start looking at the concentration versus time, and we take the natural log of that, then we end up finding that the slope of this graph is equal to negative k, which gives us some big insight. It's really important. This is amazing stuff, right? And we just keep going, and if we have our table with data, let's fit together.
Do you ever feel like your students aren't quite engaging in class the way that you'd like? I'm going to share some insights that I've gained over the last couple of years, really thinking about how to support students through a pandemic or beyond a pandemic, using metacognition, or the idea of thinking about your thinking or thinking about your learning, specifically in a general chemistry class. My name is Mark Bailey. You'll see a couple of clips here from both Ami, Abby, and some stuff that Josh Henrich was doing, who are students and learning assistants in our team. So the frustrations that we see, I'm going to say how I address them in student engagement through evidence-based instructional practices, with a few specific ones, and I'll go into each one of these in more depth. So I'll talk about how I use Zoom very flexibly, talk about how I use a student response system to get student feedback, how we use training to get students to really be reflecting on a regular basis on what they're doing, to use near peer mentors or learning assistants in our class, all kind of to get an active learning environment, whether that's in person or online, to support our students that are struggling. So when I talk about flexibility through Zoom, what do I mean? I'm talking about allowing my students specifically to come in person or to log into a Zoom link and then join our class. You'll see a clip in a second here where I show what that looks like. And that allows me to both engage the people in person and online, and to have them do breakout rooms as well as group work in person synchronously. It also allows me to record, just like I'm doing here. And that is fantastic for students that didn't quite get everything in the first pass or miss class for a health or other reason. It also allows me to annotate the screen or to have students annotate the screen. So as you will see when you're looking at someone else's shared screen, there's a view options button at the top. If you click on that, then you'll be able to see this annotate feature, and you'll see how I use that to actually draw on the screen during class. I also want to hear from all my students, not just the 4 students that always nod their head or ask good questions. And so a student response system like iClicker allows you to send a screenshot of whatever question is you have on your screen to all of your students and to solicit feedback from them. It not only gets beyond hearing from the best students in the class, but it also lets you see where you have assumptions about where these students have background knowledge, which might not be the case. I also have set up a way for students to constantly kind of check in on themselves and see if they're where they're supposed to be. So that is done for me using an online commercial platform, but it can be done in many other ways. It gives them immediate feedback so they can engage with the content on their own time. It allows for me to have small assessments before each class, so the students have to engage with the material multiple times a week, and they come into class with some basic terms under their belt. Then we have a review assignment each week. And then finally, at the end of the week, I provide a quiz so we can do an actual checkpoint. Okay, did you get it?
Being given all these different levels to approach the same topics throughout the semester really helped me feel more comfortable when taking my exams and understanding where I messed up and need to work on.
And metacognition is this idea really of asking students to reflect on their learning. So that homework is this thing that we set up in order for students to kind of access that on their own. So I'll show you a couple of clips here from my class. As I mentioned, I record every single one of my classes. I download them, post them to YouTube after class. And this is a link only accessible through a private link that my students have for the class. What does it look like in my class? Well, if I'm going over a challenging concept, basically every day in my class, according to students, I click this little green button on the iClicker program, and it sends a screenshot to my students.
How many minutes will it take for this reaction to go all the way to 1 times 10 to the negative third?
And so as I send that out to students, both the students that are in class, which might be hidden behind my image here, as well as students that are participating on Zoom, get that same screenshot, and they all get to work together as I place them in groups. We also did an activity where we had a intervention with students, metacognitive intervention, where we asked them to take a survey of the metacognitive assessment index to see how do they think about their thinking. Then we use that information, me and a learning assistant, Josh Henrich, to develop a 30-minute activity before the first exam. And this is one of the conversations that came out of that from a student.
I'm definitely going to start self-testing myself, because that's something that we were talking about in the group, and how like a lot of students don't apply that. And we'll go ahead and study and review, or just talk about whatever we learned in that class, and then just continue on to the next class without even applying any of the stuff we learned.
Some amazing stuff you can hear from your students with the right setup. Learning assistants are one of the other things we mentioned. They're specifically undergraduate peer mentors, and they provide support for group work in learning in our class. And they are individuals who are mentored by faculty, so they really have a big impact in class, as well as they benefit greatly from it.
Having learning assistants made it a lot easier for me to ask questions in class.
This is just a little taste of all the things that I've tried, or some of the things I've tried. If you're interested to learn more, feel free to contact me and ask questions, or we run a workshop every summer. It's called the Mobile Institute on Scientific Teaching, and we'd love for you to consider participating in the week-long workshop. Thank you very much.